Good morning, friends. I hope you're having a great day so far. We're going to get started with lesson 7 of our Elevate series of our desert environments. If you have not watched lesson 6 yet, I very much recommend that you go watch lesson 6. It does take some time, but we go in depth over the whole article so that we really truly understand all of the words, the vocabulary, the concepts that are being introduced. If you haven't done that yet, please go do that now, and then you can come back. And, this really does kind of go hand in hand. So in order to do lesson 7, you have to have the knowledge from lesson 6. So be ready. We are going to turn back to that cold desert article on page 25. You're going to reread your highlighted 5 important sentences. That was one of your assignments for part of lesson 6, was to find the 5 most important sentences. As you're reading those, you're going to number your sentences 1 to 5, with the number 1 being your most important sentence. Kind of go back through, rate which ones are the very most important and which one is still important but not quite as important as that number 1. When you finish that, think about how the sentence that you decided was your very most important sentence, does it make sense with what you wrote for your gist yesterday? Hopefully it does. Now, our learning targets for today are that we can find supporting details as evidence to support the main idea of a text. This is something that we practice with our Mojave Desert article, so you should be kind of familiar about this. If you didn't do the Mojave Desert article yet, you might feel a little lost. Hopefully you've done that as well. Now, another part is that we can identify characteristics of a cold desert using details from the text to answer questions. Now, on 27, the page 27 in your workbook, you're going to see this graphic organizer. This graphic organizer is going to help us to get ready to write a paragraph on Monday. So, you will need to have this done today. It's going to help you for Monday. Don't slack on it. Try to get it done the very best that you can. Now, with our graphic organizer, we have what characteristics make the Great Basin a cold desert. If we look at the top of this graphic organizer, we can see the main idea. I want you to find the top of our graphic organizer and look at that for just a second. What's our main idea? If you said the Great Basin is a cold desert ecosystem, you are exactly right. Now, if you were in class, we would be taking turns rereading the article to find supporting details and evidence for this main idea. But since you're not in class, you're going to have to read the article on your own. If you have a sibling or a parent at home that could read it with you, that would be awesome, so that they could talk with you about what they think is important, and you could tell them what you think is important. When you go through, you're going to be finding supporting details for each of our parts right here, for our temperature, our precipitation, and our elevation. Now, these supporting details and the evidence can be paraphrased or a direct quote. Now, this is something that we talked about before. What is the difference between a paraphrase and a direct quote? This is going to be a question on your assignment today for lesson 7, so make sure that you are paying attention to the explanation I'm going to give in just a second. The difference between a paraphrase and a direct quote is that a paraphrase, you're using your own words. You are taking the information that you've read, you're putting it into a similar kind of context, but you're using your own words. It stays about the same length because it's not a summary, but it is a paraphrase. And a paraphrase takes multiple details and puts them into one sentence or one piece. A direct quote is when I take something directly from the text. I write down exactly what the text says. Now, when I use a direct quote, I want to make sure that I am not doing like a whole paragraph. Because if I take out a whole paragraph of what they're writing, Is it really my writing anymore, or am I just copying and pasting? When I do a direct quote, I need to make sure that it is small. I need to make sure it's a short amount of words and that it is important enough for me to quote it directly. Okay, so if there's something that you think is important enough and you really like the way that it's worded, go ahead and use it as a direct quote, but make sure that you're not using the entire paragraph. Now, we're actually going to start by showing you how to do this whole thing with our detail box for precipitation. I want you to look at paragraph 2 of your text. In this paragraph, it talks about how the Great Basin Desert is considered cold because it receives snow. Now, look for a sentence in that paragraph. Remember, we're looking at paragraph number 2, and you're going to highlight the evidence that you find to support that idea. Now, hopefully you did the same thing. I highlighted the very first sentence. That very first sentence talks exactly about that it is a cold desert because it receives snow. We need to paraphrase this sentence for the precipitation box. What could we say? My example, I decided, was the cold desert gets most of its precipitation as snow in the winter. Now, it does have the same idea as what I had before, but I changed it into mostly my own words. Now, if you have a different sentence or a different paraphrase, that is fine. If you would like to use mine, that is fine as well. Remember that when you write down your supporting details, you need to put it into your star box. And then to prove it, you would have your evidence over on the right-hand side in that second box as well. And you would put that your evidence came from paragraph number 2. So paragraph number 2 is where we found our part about precipitation. And that was what we just barely did right here. We just make sure that if we have any other evidence that we can find, that is how we're going to do this. So if you find more than just one little piece of evidence, you are welcome to include it. It will help you when we go to write that paragraph at the very end on Monday. Now, your assignment, you are going to be going through and you're going to reread the text paragraph by paragraph, starting with paragraph 1. You're going to look for details that support your main idea. Speaking specifically, and this goes into number 3, about the middle boxes of our graphic organizer, using notes or phrases from the text. Make sure that you're referring to the clue words, so temperature, precipitation, and elevation. You're going to highlight the sentences in the text that best support your detail. You're going to go back and find additional evidence to support your detail, and then you're going to write down which paragraph your evidence came from. Then we'll go through and we'll put together a concluding statement. So do this first, pause it, and come back so that we can write a concluding statement together. Okay. Now, we are going to synthesize and synergize. That means we're going to come together and we're going to work together. What have we learned by answering the question, what characteristics make the Great Basin a cold desert? When we're writing our concluding statement, we want to try to use as much vocabulary from our last lesson as possible. Remember, we want to rephrase the main idea and then restate each of our supporting details. How can we rephrase the main idea statement in the box using precise vocabulary? Now, once again, if you were in class, we would have you turn and talk to an elbow buddy, but we are at home. So tell a stuffed animal, tell your neighbor if you're close to them, tell your parent, tell your sibling, tell your dog. Tell them how you would rephrase the main idea statement in the box using precise vocabulary. Okay, let's see what we can do. Now that we have an idea for how to rephrase that main idea, we need to consider how you can add your supporting details. Think to yourself about some possibilities. Then pick which statement you like and write it in the concluding statement box. Now, if you're having a hard time writing this conclusion, get a hold of your teacher and we would be happy to help you out. If you need to refer back to how we wrote our concluding statement, I believe that the lesson that we did that in was lesson 5. Lesson 4, lesson 5, we talked about how to put in a concluding statement at the end of our Mojave Desert paragraph. Now, like I said, your assignment today is to mainly fill in this graphic organizer, or to make one for yourself if you don't have your notebook at home, and then to write a concluding statement. Now, I will have boxes in Canvas on this quiz that tell you, that have you write in what each of your supporting details are, where did your paragraph evidence, or which paragraph did your evidence come from. You will need to answer those, and you will have to put in what your concluding statement is going to be. So if you're feeling a little struggling with this, go back and watch some of the lessons that we have on here. They are all on this same YouTube channel. If you can't find which lesson it is, make sure that you're talking to your teacher, because we would love to help you. So have fun, enjoy your writing time, and have a good day.